Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. And
You're
thank you so much for the love and support. 50,000 views out there. Holla back. But it ain't just me. I can't do it alone. So I got with me the even kill. Born in Texas, raised in VA, holding down New Jabroos. That man said, Rutgers is lit. You know what I'm saying? He even down with the New York City Red Bulls. I don't know what's going on up in here. But do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
Mr. Logical. And of course, you got your unorthodox statistician coming live from the Alamo by way of Baltimore. Going left so much you thought I was southpaw. And I never thought I would say this. But this weekend, I went more left than Bud Crawford. Sports Reports is Ordered. Like, review, subscribe. Do all the good things. Do all the free things. And let's build. So normally, we start this thing off with get it off my chest. But you know, Mr. Logical and I were so excited to talk about the NFC North. We said, hey, you know what? Let's leave our chest be for a couple of days. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to talk about the NFC North. So I'm going to just start right off the top, Mr. Logical. Green Bay, Chicago. Which one is for real? Which one is overhyped?
I think what we got to look at here is the last season results. Shout out the Cups. People kind of forget that Jordan Love had are we going to be drafting a quarterback in the first round kind of first half of the season last year. It wasn't like people weren't locked in. It was, I won't say luckily, but Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles, the Green Bay fans couldn't have been like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is still in New York killing it, and we got this guy. So he had that pressure, that monkey off his back. But for the first 8 games, he was not killing it. The last 8 games, and then included a couple of playoff games, something like I think he had 1 interception,
18-1,
18 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Yeah.
But the team still was 9-8. And I think people kind of forget that because they dismantled Dallas at Jerry World. So people think like, oh, they must have had like this great turnaround season, and it was like a 11-6 season. Nah, it was borderline 9-8. A fumble here, a missed field goal
they needed
here.
to win the last game of the year to get in.
They don't make the playoffs. So it's like, I don't know how you go from not barely making the playoffs, which is fine. You made the playoffs. You made a big tournament. You made a big splash. Put up 48 points on Dallas. And then you had a lead on San Francisco. Brock Purdy and the 49ers kind of clawed back, took the lead, and then unfortunately Jordan Love threw an interception in the game. I like what they're doing, but I can foresee a 9-8 year and people looking at it like a letdown, but it might be the best case scenario. We know I'm not really into the stats and all that other information. I'm kind of just like the overall sense of the concept of the sport and everything else. You get into the weeds, and we talked about in our pre-meeting. He's going to break down like certain chunks of the Packers schedule that if you're looking at it as a sports fan and you're not analyzing it, you're like, you know what? 9-8 wouldn't be a bad run because they got an 8-week stretch. It's not as bad as Pittsburgh's, and we'll get into that later this week. But they have an 8-week stretch where it's like it could go left. So, like I said, well, I'll let Mike get that. I'm not gonna step on his toes like I do often. But like I said, I like the fact that they got the distraction out of the way. They're in a weird circumstance where like they don't have an owner. They have like shareholders, and the fans have stake. I'm not sure exactly who calls, like who makes the final shot. I don't know if it goes to a voting board. If you have a certain number of stocks, you get a vote. I don't know how that works, but they seem to always get there. They don't go into off seasons with a lot of issues. That's why with the Favre thing, even with Favre, they're like, all right, cool. You're done. Bet we're going on the Aaron. And then with Favre, like, I'm coming back. They're like, yeah, we already went on the Aaron. Like, they don't drag it out like some of these teams. Like, we think about Dallas and how they're dragging things out. Even San Francisco, how they're dragging things out. I think Green Bay tends to get things done. They have that real blue collar, workman like ideology to their team. So I think that can help them. But like I said, when we get into this 8-week stretch, that's 47% of your season. You have to hit in that 8-week window because you're gonna drop a game of your other 9. You're gonna drop a game to Chicago. You're gonna drop a game to Detroit. You're gonna drop a game probably you shouldn't. Maybe Minnesota steals one out of that other 9. But we talk about this compact 8-game stretch that they have. It could be a situation where 8-9 or 9-8 is on the table, and it's gonna look like a disappointment because of their successful playoff run they had last year.
Yeah, and see the problem is with that aforementioned 18-1 that you brought up earlier, you got to hear all the stat geeks. I'm not a stat geek, but I'm just saying you got to hear all the stat geeks talk about the only other 2 people in NFL history that have done this in an 8-game stretch are named Mahomes and Jackson. So that just adds on to the pressure because now, even though you're not that player yet on that level yet, your name is in conversations that hold them because of what you accomplished. So people are saying, feed me more. But, as Mr. Logical said, let's look at this 8-game stretch here. You got week 7. They start at home with Houston that week, go to Jacksonville, home for Detroit. Then they get their bye week. So, relief, right? No, because you come off the bye week at Soldier Field, home for San Francisco, Miami coming in the next week, at Detroit, and then at Seattle. That's the 8-week stretch right there. That's going to make and break your season right there. There is no, hey, we can go 3-5 here and make it up. Because if Caleb Williams is anything that people think that he might be, you might be in trouble as is. Now, Green Bay, to your point, they're a lot like the Pittsburgh Steelers at one point, where fans around the league sit around and we say, why they don't never make any moves?
Yeah.
Like they just believe in, we're going to draft you, we're going to build you up, we're going to coach you up, and you're going to be a Steeler. You're going to be a Packer. This is our culture. So when you look at the Packers, you get fooled because you see in the offseason, this past offseason, they went and got Josh Jacobs, who 2 years ago led the league in rushing. So you're like, good job, guys. But guess what? They ain't do shit on defense, which was the problem to begin with. So then you get into these conversations of, hey, Josh Jacobs might be an upgrade over Aaron Jones. Now, that's a debate for another day, probably. But what I will say is, I don't think it make a difference because Aaron Jones, in his 7 years in the league, played a full season twice. Josh Jacobs played a full season once in 5 years. So either way, you're getting a whole lot of non-dependability.
You're getting the same thing.
And then speaking of not being reliable, anybody seen Christian Watson? Took the league by storm as a rookie.
He just has to figure out his hamstring. He has to get on the Pilates machine or something to figure out like why he was pulling hamstrings. I believe the last time I saw him, he pulled like the middle of a route. Like he pulled a double move. I think he was going to be open, pulled up, incomplete pass, and they took him off the field. Another thing that's going to hurt Green Bay from the fan support. Jordan Love got his extension, and we were talking in the preview, like maybe it kicks in next year. It kicks in this year. His base salary is $3.5 million.
Ugh,
nothing crazy.
Year, huh?
Signing bonus $75 million.
Whew.
So, like I said, I wouldn't say they lucked up because I don't think NFL teams luck up to 9 wins, but they had a grind to get 9 wins last year. You pay a guy $79 million essentially this calendar year. The expectation is to not go 7-9 or 7-10. Right. You expect 10, 11 wins. Unfortunately, everybody can't have 10 or 11 wins. Mm-hmm. You might be in a situation where, like I said, that 9-8, might look way different than the 9-8 from last year. But are the fans gonna kind of turn because you're getting $79 million and getting this 9-8? Because last year they were the darlings.
Right.
Now you have expectations. Like we'll talk about expectations as we get to Chicago.
Right.
So I think they're the sleeper pick for a lot of pundits that I've heard of, thinking like they can be it because they believe the fact that the wide receiver room is so inexpensive, but they're still simultaneously playmakers, that paying Jordan Love isn't going to take away from what they can do as far as a production sense. But in the same sense, there's the pressure of that Tuesday paycheck, and everyone talking about the Tuesday paycheck. Does that get to him? Does he force throws? Does he do things differently to try to justify essentially holding out? For granted, it was like maybe for like a week, but I think it was like holding in. He wasn't He was there, but he wasn't practicing. Let's say that's a weird term I've heard this year. Is like some guys are holding out, some guys are I guess Dak is technically holding in by just being there, but not under contract. I'm not talking about his contract. I think CD is holding out by not being there at all. Jordan Love was holding in by saying, I'm not going to practice, but I'll be at the building. So it's all these different variances to try to force their leverage. You got your money. It was rather quick. I mean, we were talking about Tua for 2 years getting his money, and he finally got it. But yeah, that $75 million signing bonus, as a fan, you would probably think, okay, that's 10 wins. This is supposed to be the guy that gets us 10 wins.
And see, and that's where like you got to focus, right? Because football is the ultimate team sport. What up, Q? It's the ultimate team sport, right? So what does that mean? What about defense? So they lost Jonathan Owens, to the rival Chicago Bears.
Shout
him
out
as
Simone Biles.
Yeah, I was gonna say, him as Mr. Simone Biles. Yeah.
Yo, shout out Jonathan Owens' agent for getting it written in his contract that he gets to leave training camp for the Olympics.
Right.
I know a lot of people have leverage as far as like money and everything else, but he was like, listen, I need this in my contract that from July this date to this date, I'm not gonna be here. You can't charge me. I'm gonna be in Paris. That's just dope. Like I want to shout him out for that. Whoever his agent is, he needs to call up a couple more, second tier cornerbacks. I'm like, listen, this guy's looking out for you.
Right. So defense, right? The Green Bay Packers may be the beneficiary of the new college football, right? These coaches are leaving. We saw Chip Kelly leave his head coaching position at UCLA to become the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So the Green Bay Packers reached down to college and grabbed the head coach of Boston College, one Mr. Jeff Hafley, to become their defensive coordinator, which is crazy because they were top 5 in points allowed last year and they still replaced their defensive coordinator. Whatever. But when I look at Jeff Hafley, right, I know that college football and the NFL aren't the same thing. But you just look at certain things and you're like, why am I supposed to be excited about this?
Mike about to get into his college football bag, y'all. Pay attention.
I'm like, how the hell did
Mike about to get in this bag, y'all?
How the hell did he get this job? Because he was the head coach at Boston College for the last 3 years, right? Last year, leading into becoming the Packers defensive coordinator. Boston College had the 70th defense in the nation, total defense in the nation. They were 8th in the ACC. I didn't say the SEC. I did not say the Big Ten. I said the ACC. So you think to yourself, come on, 2-5. Don't kill that man for 1 year. Well, in the year before, they were number 100 in the nation. Number 13 out of 14 teams in the ACC. So I guess this is the Deion Sanders plan where you went, hey, they won 1 game. Now they won 4. And I guess everything's all good. Now he's the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, I don't get it. But, so when I look at the Packers defense, they didn't go grab anybody that stands out. They didn't go make a move. They didn't go, even if it was somebody like, say, an old dude like a Stephon Gilmore. You feel like, hey, we got expectations. People are picking us to go to the Super Bowl, picking us to make the NFC Championship game. We can't ride it out because Detroit over here doing stuff. Chicago went and got not only a receiver from the Chargers, they went and got possibly the best receiver in the whole NFL draft. They paid DJ Moore. The Bears are still making defensive moves. And Green Bay is arrogant enough to say that we got Jordan Love. We just going to run it back.
I mean, it could be wise. They're probably looking at it like, okay, if you pay Jordan Love, these wide receivers have the year that they think they're going to have, you might have to break off the Devontae Smith money for a couple of these guys, maybe, before the wide receiver bubble went from 26 million was like the crazy number. Then I think Devontae Adams got 27. Then Tyreek got 30. And now guys getting 35. You might have to break off 24 million for a couple of these guys, maybe one or two of them. Probably not both, because I can't imagine you pay your quarterback 55 and you paying two wide receivers 20 plus. Like I don't know. I don't know how to work the yeah. So like I said, I like I saw what you did there, President. I saw what you did there. I would have taken a draft pick because we saw the call that Chicago made to Atlanta to try to move from 9 to 8, and they was going to give up a fourth because they wanted to take Rome, and Atlanta was like, "Nah, we good." I'm like, "So you don't want an extra draft pick because you was going to take Penix at 8 or 9 anyway?" But we're not going to get on that bandwagon. I'm going to harp on that enough throughout the next few months. But I like. Sometimes I like just kind of staying pat and then moving forward. It's just your expectation management is the whole piece for me. Is like they were 9-8 this past season.
Right.
I don't want people out here thinking 12-5, 13-4 because you think you got your guy at quarterback. That's not how it works.
Right.
I like consistency. A piece I got from the Rich Eisen show I was watching yesterday, and what they said was that Matt LaFleur likes motion. He likes moving guys around to set up his plays. Mike McDaniel does that. Kyle Shanahan does that. Aaron Rodgers is a lot like Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Tom Brady. They want you to get set. They want to see who's where and say, I know when I look over here and I got Julian Edelman to my left and this safety is closer down in the box. I've seen this on film. I know what they're going to do. I'm going to Gronk over here. I don't want all emotions. Where LaFleur couldn't tell Aaron, this guy needs to go in motion, because Aaron's like, no. I want everybody standing still, and I want to look at them for 7 or 8 seconds and figure out where am I going to go with this ball. I don't need all the movement and the switching. Like, they're not going to move. The defense isn't going to move if you don't move the offensive players. And I think just through years of repetition, it was just like, I want guys here so I know where to go with the ball. And LaFleur is like, I need you to move guys around. That way I can scheme and get Dobbs open on this underneath screen, or I can get the fake bubble screen and I can sneak Krista Watson up the sideline on like a little wheel route, something along those lines. Jordan Love is going to, acquiesce to those requests as far as in the game plan, whereas I don't think Aaron would. So I think Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love will grow together, because it's like, listen, you're running my offense. I'm going to make you look as best as possible in my offense. Whereas Aaron was like, listen, I'm going to make your offense look as best as I can make it based on what I can do for you. And I think right now that relationship's reversed, where Jordan Love is in position where now he has to listen to Matt LaFleur. And Matt LaFleur, listen, I want you to succeed, because you succeed, we succeed. Whereas Aaron's like, listen, I'm going to succeed. You're going to just ride along with me. There's a difference. So I think that might help them out. But 9-8 is still realistic, just because of that stretch in the middle.
It is. Yeah. And let me be fair to the Packers. They did get Xavier McKinney. I forgot to mention that. They did get Xavier McKinney. So they did make a defensive move. But when I look at it, right, I'm looking around the NFC, just trying to appreciate the landscape. So of course, for me, it starts and ends with the 49ers. The Rams may be close, but not quite there. Philly has the talent, but we got to see, as Mr. Logical likes to say, we got to see if their coach has grown up.
That's huge. I got to see it.
Dallas has, may or may not have a winning culture depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, there's a
Detroit,
debate around it.
Detroit is Detroit. So now you start to weed it out and you say, like, as I'm looking at these playoff spots, I'm getting two from the West. I might get two from the East. So then, might, and then you look at it. The South is getting in. So
One.
that's 5 teams right there. There's 2 spots left. You know what I mean? So if you're Green Bay, you got to win this division because that spot might not be there for you.
If I'm Green Bay, I'm thinking I'm beating Chicago out. Just off experience alone. Because as we transition to Chicago, Chicago has all the offensive pieces, but they still have the same defensive head coach that couldn't make it work with Justin Fields. And maybe it was Justin Fields' fault, but they had weapons. They had Mooney, Claypool, and DJ Moore, and Kmet, and Justin Fields. That's just as dynamic from a matchup sense as what they currently have. I know it might be a little better, but you have Roma Dunze, who's a rookie, so you don't really know what you're going to get out of him. DJ Moore is a good wide receiver, probably one of the fastest in the league. Keenan Allen is a good route runner. Mooney was your take off the top guy. Like I said, like Paper Warriors, they're great for Madden. You go 4 wide in Madden, or you go, trips right with the tight end. Like, you're gonna have a ball playing with Chicago and Madden, but in real life, in all actuality, is Matt Eberflus, because he grew the beard out. Is it going to be different? He's going to have a different mindset this year because he looks like a completely different person with the beard, without the beard. Without the beard, he looks like an accountant. With the beard, he looks like a head coach. But he had gone. Was Ryan Poles like, listen, I can't get rid of the coach yet, because if I get rid of the coach and then it doesn't work out going in the next season, who am I going to get rid of? Because if you get rid of the coach, if you would have got rid of the coach when he got rid of everyone else, he'd have to bring in a new coach. Now that coach is tethered to you. And if it doesn't work out with all these moves, because they were in position to make these moves from the time the season ended. We knew what their first pick was going to be. We knew who they're going to have. They're going to have the 9th overall pick. We knew they were going to make moves based off Justin Fields. I figured they would have got a better haul for Justin Fields. I figured an earlier trade could have got you 1 or 2 second-round picks, maybe not a first. But I knew they had the draft capital. So if you get rid of the coach and you bring in another guy and it doesn't work out, they're going to look at you as the GM, and he might be out in the next year. But having Eberflus potentially as a lame duck, like, listen, I put these pieces together. You can't make it work. So after week 6, week 7, they're 2-5 or 1-4, after a few games, then you can get rid of him. But I mean, that's just me being a prognosticator without any of it. But yeah, like I said, I like Chicago, but Chicago could easily go 7-10 again, and it shouldn't surprise you because they have a rookie quarterback who's kind of quirky, a lot of expectations. So them going 7-10 shouldn't surprise you if it does happen.
Yo, I absolutely love Chicago next year. Next year. I don't know what Caleb Williams is right now, because, I've seen him, and you brought this up in our pre-meeting, when times get tough, he folds. He cries. Nothing against crying. Everybody needs a good cry every now and again, I suppose. You know what I'm saying? But he cries. Saying he chips his nails. Saying messing up his paint. Then he sits around and mopes. He just looks lost. Like it makes you wonder sometimes. Saying, not to steal your line, but it's like, do you even love football? You know what I mean? Or are you just the guy that is great at it? You've been dominant.
You've just been good at it for so long.
Yeah, it came so easy to you.
You love success of football, but do you love football? Because they lost to Utah 3 times in a row. One of those games, they win and they're in the college football playoffs. And I get it. Utah, and I believe he got hurt that game.
He hurt his ankle or so, yeah.
Ankle or hand, something
they still lost by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so it's and everyone wants to compare him and say Mahomes-esque. The thing with Mahomes last year, his stats were 27 touchdowns, 14 picks in the regular season. But in the playoffs, every single week he made the play to make the team better. In order for you to compare a guy to him, in my opinion, I need to see that same thing. So Caleb, he plays off schedule a lot, but I remember that Colorado game where they pretty much had it on lock, and then Colorado brought it back to within a one possession game. And I know the defense was kind of like, Swiss cheese. You could drive Mack trucks to them, but in the same sense, it feels as if I'm I haven't seen him persevere through tough situations. If you want to call Oklahoma tough, but that was tough because he was just behind a guy who was the number one recruit a class or so before him. So it wasn't like it was tough because he got beat and had to win the job back. Like you came in behind the guy who's number one, considering that you were number one in your class. So if a guy came in behind you, you wouldn't expect him to start over you either. So the fact that he expected just to start over Spencer Rattler, like it just baffles me. So I think his expectations are very high, but I don't know if we have the tape that matches his expectations. And now with the league and the media having expectations of them being 10-7, 11-6, contended with Detroit to win the NFC North, I don't know how he takes it if they end up 2-3.
Well, the major difference between him and Mahomes is that we saw Mahomes, as great as he is, the no look passes and all the crazy stuff that he does in the moment. We also saw Patrick Mahomes lead offenses. We saw him engineer drives through the lens of a system, and so a lot of people had the whole Texas Tech stigma attached to him. Texas Tech quarterbacks don't succeed in the NFL.
The Graham Harrell stigma, yeah.
Right. When you look at Caleb Williams, and I don't know how to word this, so I guess I'm gonna just roll with it. But like, it's a whole lot of playground football. Like you remember when we were little kids playing tag and you drawing on your hand, you go this way, you go this way, and then don't nobody remember all that, and then you just start running around and you're athletic, you make plays.
Yeah.
But these guys in the NFL are faster than the guys that you played against in college.
Yeah.
So, that's number one. But the Bears, I will give the Bears credit because they gave this man an arsenal. They already had DJ Moore. They went out and got Keenan, I'm never there, Allen.
Yeah.
Like I said, they got Roma Dunze. They went and got DeAndre Swift. So even in the backfield, like, let's work. They went and they already got Cole Kmet. They added Gerald Everett to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Herbert, the running back, the small compact running back Herbert.
Yeah.
I like Tariq Cohen.
Yep. And then on defense, they brought back Jalen Johnson. With Montez Sweat last year, they were one of the top defenses in the league coming down the stretch, of the final games of the season. They even got Kevin Byard, from Tennessee / Philadelphia last year. I mentioned Jonathan
Owens. The ball.
He's
just an interception. He's just a magnet. He just knows where the ball is going to be. I think past few years been one of the top interception defensive backs. So
right.
That's just
and to top it all off, and to top it all off, you know what I mean? Even Tyson Bagent went 2-2 last year.
Yeah.
Without that stuff.
And the thing with Tyson Bagent, and I believe Justin Fields, I believe the knock on Justin Fields, even from my rudimentary just watching the games, we talked about this watching the game. I think you and I watched it. I don't know if we were doing it live or we watched the show, and I remember.
Oh, yeah, we were doing it live. I was crying on air.
It seemed like sometimes he was holding onto the ball. He made a couple of jump passes to where he was jumping into the shoulder pad of the defensive tackle. So, like, he's getting slammed down to the ground a lot harder than he should have. But even with that, Bagent, got a couple of wins. I'm just not sure what Eberflus gives you. And like you said, I believe they got the coordinator Brady, I believe.
For
Chicago.
The Bears. Let's see. Hold on.
Yeah, I believe.
Because I know they got Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator. They got Eric Washington as their defensive coordinator.
Okay, so
He came
as
from
long as
Buffalo.
if Caleb can play on schedule, he has what a young quarterback needs in a reliable wide receiver core, and then a big tight end that comes across the middle, big reliable tight end. If he could just hit his back foot, go through his reads, and let it go, and say, you know what, I'm gonna take this 7 yard gain on this curl to the tight end and get 2nd and 3 versus trying to hit DJ Moore on this deep route
Mhm.
for a touchdown when it's 9 minutes 18 seconds left in the first quarter. Like, if we have plenty of time, get this stack these first downs. If he can understand that, because at USC it was big play, big play, big play. And I don't know if it's because he knew the defense was going to give up points, so he was like going for it, or if it just was like, I want to make this big play because I'm obsessed with making the big play and not making the play. But I mean, if he can handle the podium, I know he's been in the limelight for the last
Mhm.
36 months, so that's not new. He's eccentric with the fingernail paints, with the fuck Utah on his fingers, but couldn't beat him. Maybe you should have beat Utah in there, because Utah was fucking you. Shout out, go Utes. Uh,
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so check it out, right? So obviously we know what Justin Fields added to the Bears run game. They finished second or third in the league in rushing last year. They were top 4 the year before that as well, and his presence obviously impacts that. So taking that away, obviously, because I can't imagine that Caleb Williams is going to
just
run
like
the way that Justin Fields ran.
he won't run
But
20% of the way Justin Fields
but
ran.
but Justin Fields last year passing, 61.4 completion percentage, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So if Caleb Williams can do slightly better than that, like, if he can get to, say, 19 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, then the Bears might be cooking with something, but I don't
If
trust
he
that,
gets 4,000 yards
which
and
the Bears
30
have never done.
if he gets 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, like you said, he'd be the only Bears quarterback to ever do that. I think just Josh Allen's done that every year he's been in the league. So it's like, and I know Josh Allen is upper echelon, but like, that's not a crazy amount of yards, and it's 17-game season. That's not a crazy amount of touchdowns. That's 1.25, 1.5 per game gets you over 30 touchdowns. So less than 2 touchdowns a game, which can be anything. A little dump off to the tight end in the flat, or you get that bombed off that you want. I think he'll be fine. I don't believe that the hype is unwarranted. I do think it might be a little. It could
So,
be a little much, but I don't believe he's going to fall so much. I don't think he's going to fall. I don't think he's going to give you Bryce Young numbers with CJ Stroud hype. Because right now,
mhm,
essentially, everyone's looking at CJ Stroud, 23-5, 10-7, won the division, won a playoff game. I think that's the new benchmark. And it's not an unrealistic benchmark for a young quarterback that has talent. He had 3 years in college, 1 year won the Heisman. So he has the starts to where
mhm,
his career is very similar to what CJ Stroud had, as far as like statistically, with the
right.
talent around him that CJ had in Ohio State and what Caleb has in USC. I think it
And
does
they
translate.
and they still, like I said, I was mentioning their defense earlier. They still have Tremaine Edmonds over there, TJ Edwards. I mentioned Sweat. So, like, the Bears are going in the right direction. I just don't think they have the right leader. That's number one as far as the head coach goes. But looking
Yeah,
at their schedule, right? Looking at their schedule, I don't think their schedule is that bad to start out. They start at home against Tennessee. They go to Houston for Sunday night football. So that's going to be hyped up, right? Caleb Williams against CJ Stroud, Sunday night
absolutely.
football. They go to Indy the week after that, host the Rams, host Carolina. That's their first 5 games. So if you could go 3-2 there, you might be working with something. You get Jacksonville week 6 before your bye. So that's the problem, is that your bye is so early, right? And then you,
Correct.
you go Washington, then you go cross country Arizona. So you could lose that Arizona game just off of the travel. Come back home for the Patriots and Green Bay and Minnesota. So that's 10 through 12, weeks 10 through 12, 3 straight home games. You go to Detroit for Thanksgiving, but then you follow up Detroit with going to San Francisco. And then you close out at Minnesota, home for Detroit, home Seattle, at Green Bay. That's not that rough of a schedule,
That's not
like
that rough of a stretch. So if you figure, if we look at, he's a he's from DC. He played football in U.S. in California and Oklahoma. So if you look at the, because I'm a big weather guy when it comes to these quarterbacks,
did
you
he,
got
Mike?
Dak had it was solid. They almost hosted an NFC Championship game if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, you got a dome game in December. So you got two dome games, your two division games in December. So you're not playing. So you're gonna get Detroit. Your first Detroit game is gonna be November in the dome, but you get them at home outside in late December. Green Bay's outside late December. They're If they can discover a power run game or a consistent run game throughout the year, I give them a shot in these late games. But if they are out there like, yo, we have the best wide receiver core and we're going to throw it all over the place with this young gun quarterback, and they don't establish the run, then I
And
think
don't
that.
forget, they got my guy Roshan Johnson, backing up Swift. So like
So as
those
long as
two.
they can play old school, Rex Grossman, Lance Briggs, Brian Urlacher, Devin Hester, that's kind of Chicago. I think they'll be fine. I still think he'll be able to get to his 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Maybe not 30 touchdowns because rookies don't seem to get. I think I believe Dak had 23. I believe Peyton had 26, but he also like 25
He had
interceptions.
28 interceptions.
Yeah, so Baker had 26 or 27 touchdowns. It's just not common for young quarterbacks to throw that many touchdowns because I think they probably could get that. They probably could get that throw off, but
Yeah.
they don't know the closing speed of a safety in cover two in those tight little windows. So I think they'll check it down and kick the
Hmm.
field goal. They might get those obvious throws that turn into touchdowns, but those tight window throws that Aaron Rodgers can get in that back corner, the Kirk Cousins throws, the old school Peyton Man, Drew Brees, like those red zone throws that those guys are getting off. I think in those situations, even as a coach, the last thing you want is a young quarterback and you put him in a situation where he throws a red zone touchdown because everyone knows you took points off the board. We could have got a field goal, we could have got a touchdown, and you fucked it up. I don't think they want to I don't think they want to leverage that responsibility on the quarterback.
And like when I was a young kid, young little lad, young little tyke, one of my favorite nicknames in the whole world was the Purple People Eaters. And I can't tell you the last time Minnesota ate somebody. You
They had
know,
Daniil Hunter and had no pass rush.
yes. And now Daniil Hunter's in Houston. They
Houston,
they did bring in Jonathan Grenard. So they did a swap basically.
yeah.
They went out in the draft. You ready for this, Mike? They went into the draft and they got the one and only JJ McCarthy of Michigan fame. But now we don't know if JJ's going to get the start week 1 or is it going to be Sam Darnold who see ghost?
Come on, man. Sam Darnold's not starting. If
No
it because
chance.
it's gonna be close. If it's gonna be close, I rather if my offensive line holds up. Like if the offensive line is as you go through practice, if they look like they're holding up against your defensive front, I put JJ back there and let him take his lumps. We talked about this in our pre-meeting. I think Kevin O'Connell, as I'm watching quarterback playing on the background here on Netflix, it felt like he didn't really always mesh with Kirk Cousins. Kurt does seem to be in his head a lot, and I think O'Connell wanted him to play a little bit more loose. and maybe it's based off the fact that like Kurt had all these things, all this information in his head, and it was like, I need to slice through that, focus on these plays inside these hash marks, go. Maybe JJ, because he doesn't know any better. Like I say, he's 26-1 in college. I believe he won a state championship in Michigan, in the state of Michigan in high school. All he knows is how to win. Even if it's whatever the team needs, even if he hands the ball off 42 times and only throws 10 or 15 passes, I don't think you can get that off again, a la Mac Jones in the NFL. But if it's close between him and Darnold, I'd rather put him out there and let him see it. I'd rather have him out there, week 3, trying to run a 2-minute offense versus watching Sam Darnold run it and it's unsuccessful. I think you gain more from JJ McCarthy being successful or unsuccessful going forward than you would with Sam Darnold being unsuccessful and JJ McCarthy watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, so it's close. I'm going with I would go with JJ. And I think O'Connell, like I say, he's already bought himself at least this season and maybe next season with the injuries and the quarterback personnel he had in place last year. He had the guy from BYU that tried to dive to the end zone against Atlanta, got knocked out of the game. You had to bring in Josh Dobbs, who didn't even know all the offensive linemen's names when he came back in that game against Atlanta and won. Atlanta's always a great way to get your confidence back if you're a quarterback. So that also worked out. But he was playing games with Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs again. So it just was like Jared Hall. So he was going through this gamut of quarterbacks. Now, maybe you want to protect JJ McCarthy, but in my opinion, if your offensive line is holding up and he understands how to get the ball out, he doesn't try to run and do too much to where he's getting himself hurt or taking unnecessary hits. If he can handle that, then I put him out there and have Darnold holding the clipboard, because Darnold's had his opportunity. His number 3 overall pick. He went to the Panthers, had opportunity. He couldn't beat out Baker Mayfield, and now he's here. So it's like it's only so long you can figure out if this guy's a guy. If he's a career backup, make him a backup. Bring the guy you drafted in the first round. Let him start. Let him take his lumps. Let him know you're not going to bench him.
Yeah, like JJ McCarthy in limited action. I know he played the whole time, but in limited action, he made some plays. Like I don't know. I got into this on the hot box last night where, there's not many games that I look at and just say JJ McCarthy led that win. I know that from what I remember when they let him go, he threw 2 pick sixes in the playoffs against TCU. This year against Penn State, this past season, they ran 27 straight run plays at a
But
point
that was
during that
also
game.
the interim head coach.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
He didn't want to be the
it is what it is.
reason that granted, I know
They
that's
weren't
kind
going
of
to lose. They weren't going to lose the Penn
being
State.
an advocate for JJ McCarthy. But it's like, I hate when guys do it on these video games where they're just running the same play over and over again. But it's like, in real life, listen, if you can't stop this right hand, I'll keep hitting you with it. Keep tagging the left side of your face
But
until you
JJ
fall.
McCarthy, to me, where JJ McCarthy showed some worth to me was the playoff game against Alabama, because it would have been easy for him to hang his head, defensive struggle, playoffs. You've been here last year, the game against TCU that I brought up. So it would have been easy to go, here we go again, or to fold under the Nick Saban pressure,
Right.
but he made some big plays in that game, so salute to him. He made a throw against Washington, even though they were up by double digits. There was a throw that he made against Washington that said, okay, he does have some talent. Now, I don't know if I go as far as Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh went on to compare him to Andrew Luck. I don't know if I go that far, but maybe there's something there that Michigan's system held back from us.
Or maybe it's the Harbaugh system.
Or maybe it's just the Harbaugh system. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about, Justin Herbert with the Chargers and Harbaugh. And they say Harbaugh gets the best out of his quarterbacks from within the Harbaugh system. Because sometimes coaches have like this, like we talk about Sean Payton. I feel like Sean Payton wants a quarterback to fit his system and make his system go Whereas I think Harbaugh is like, listen, this is our system. You're going to take off in this system because when you throw the ball downfield, I'm gonna have 2 tight ends in here to block for you, and the third tight end is going to leak out, and you're going to get an easy completion. A guy named Studebaker or some kind of Midwestern name is going to catch the ball, and he's going to run 30 yards up the seam, and then we're going to be on the go because I'm going to put you in a position to where these are the best possible throws, and I'm going to keep you in that position. All because we saw what Kaepernick did. Kaepernick was unbelievable. Alex Smith is unbelievable with Jim Harbaugh because it was like, listen, I'm going to put you in a position where you're going to make 4 or 5 remarkable plays a game, whether throwing the ball or with your legs. I'm going to put you in a position because this system will put you there. And I think McCarthy just kind of benefited from that. They had the best running back, tandem in the backfield.
Well, I had a nasty thought earlier. I was going back through because like about a month ago, I was looking at this stuff and I was like, shit, man, Minnesota might go 3-14 or something like that. But then, like, as I was like coming back down to it, I was like, hey, there actually isn't much difference between Minnesota and Chicago. Because when I look at like just looking at the roster I'm talking about, you got Justin Jefferson. As long as he's not in jail, you got Jordan Addison. You got TJ Hawkinson, even though he's coming off an injury, but you got TJ Hawkinson. You picked up Aaron Jones from Green Bay. We saw what he did to the Cowboys in the playoff game. Say, hey, I said at first, Q, hold on, I'm getting there. And you know what I mean? So, like, they got Aaron Jones now. I like Ty Chandler, who played a little bit last year. He was better than Madison last year. When you look at the defense, they got Grenard. He's not Danielle Hunter per se, but I like him. They went and got Dallas Turner in the draft. So like Minnesota's
which
not
was a steal, by the way.
Yes. So
they got their start. They did the same thing Houston did. You got a potential starting quarterback and the starting defensive stud in the first round. You made a couple of moves, couple of phone calls, and you really set yourselves up going forward.
So I think it's possible that JJ McCarthy could be more pro ready in this moment than Caleb Williams is from the standpoint of, mentally, he listens. He doesn't think he's bigger than the team. He's not about a brand.
That Caleb, it was USC. I know Colin Cowherd reported this because he said he's connected to USC. That only Lincoln Riley,
he's connected with his mouth to their ass. I mean,
could talk directly to Caleb. It was like no one else in the coaching staff could talk. I don't know what the extent of that is, but if it was a situation where he only went to Lincoln, that could be a problem in the NFL because you have grown men coaches
right
who aren't going to cower to, some 21-year-old.
And Caleb Williams already telling these dudes to clean up the water bottles. It's like, nah, rookie, you clean up the water bottles.
Nah, I like that because I'm on this big decluttering kick here in my own space. So it's like I tell my sons, I'm like, listen, man, if you clean up the shit around you as you use it, then when the next wave of stuff inevitably comes, it doesn't look like a tornado came through. Because you're gonna have dirty towels, you're gonna have cleats, you're gonna have like maybe broken shoelaces and cleats, and you're gonna have to put them in a pile. But if that's also next to the trash you could have taken out, or whatever food boxes you could bring from the facility, if all of that stuff is in there mixed in with like your normal football stuff, it's gonna look like a debacle, and then people will treat it as such. Like I tell my kids all the time, like, listen, if you're gonna have a party at your house, you clean your house before people show up. That way, when people show up, they understand this is a standard. You're walking into an environment that we use coasters, shit goes in the trash can, like that's the standard. But if you allow the standard to be, we just leave stuff everywhere, then that leads people to just not caring about the locker room, not understanding that it's a cohesive unit that needs to work well together. It can't work well together if you're the only one cleaning up and everybody else is keeping a mess. So I respect that.
And I look at it. I like it too, but I like it for a different reason. You know what I'm saying? I like it because when I look at it, Chicago needs a leader. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but if my house was so messy that a child could walk in and recognize that this is messy to a child's eyes, I got to look at myself like, yo, if I'm a veteran and I got a rookie coming in like, yo, we didn't act like this in college. You can't be like, oh, I'm a grown man. It's like, well, why am I telling you to clean up after yourself? Why do I have to mention that if you are this established vet? So I understand you don't want to just be chastised by a rookie, but in the same sense, why are you not in a position where you're holding up the standard
That's what I'm about to tell you. I'm about to tell you why.
Reach to? Yeah,
that's why I like it, because the Bears are losers. DJ Moore is a loser. Keenan Allen is a loser. You know, Montez Sweat is a loser. None of these dudes have ever done anything in the NFL. Like Keenan Allen's had good seasons and everything like that. But like I mentioned, he's not even there half the time anyway. So I like the fact that this kid is coming in. Now, the problem is is that Caleb Williams hasn't played a down yet. Oh, look at y'all. Great minds think alike, huh? Great minds think alike, huh? Yeah, that's what y'all doing over here, huh?
That's what we doing. That's what we doing.
but like, it's not the fact that he's a winner per se. You know what I'm saying? So this is what I was about to say. You know, obviously, like Caleb Williams is building a reputation of his mouth, the brand, all this kind of stuff. So it just hits a little differently, to whereas I think we might view it a little bit differently if Jaden Daniels said that, or if JJ McCarthy said that. We might not view it the same way because they don't have that same reputation that Caleb Williams has. But this is the thing though. You know what I'm saying? Caleb Williams was brought into the Chicago Bears to be the savior, if you will. So why not from day one? I was about to say assume the position, but I know y'all was gonna kill me for that. But he was gonna put his foot down and say, look, this is my team. I'm taking ownership. You know what I mean? And I respect that. Now, with that being said, they gonna tell you, no, you go carry my bags. Just like we saw Amani Toomer went off about this and was upset that Caleb Williams wanted a clean locker room.
But
and
the thing about that was because I think like you said it perfectly. If Jaden Daniels says it, we don't interpret it with a diva-like tone.
And we look at Washington differently.
Like if you think about it right now, if everybody listening, imagine how you would, if you're looking at Caleb Williams say clean up the locker room. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about all the extra stuff. You're thinking about the contract conversation. You're thinking about the fingernails. You're thinking about all like the theatrics that come along with the show that is Caleb Williams. So we're all envisioning him standing up there and a bunch of grown men looking at him like, look at this dude. But if Jaden Daniels says it, Jaden Daniels, the only locker room and I bring it up a lot, is when he was cleaning out his locker in Arizona State. If he would have said exactly, no dude would pay any emails telling me to do clean anything. That's the difference. His tone and his message is warranted if you want to create a winning environment. Declutter, be prepared, get in and out. Like we talked about in basic training. Like, you know, me and Mike with basic training. We were issued 3 pairs of shoes. I'm 60 of us in my unit, so it's 180 pairs of shoes. If they weren't organized under the bed and chairs against the wall and a fire drill goes off, we're tripping over shoes trying to get out. But the standard was, yo, keep this clean. And we got appointed leadership positions upon arrival. It wasn't a dude that was in basic training 2 weeks before you or 3 weeks before you that was in charge of you. It was a guy that got off the bus with you, put him down, pick him up when you're holding your bags at 4 o'clock in the morning in San Antonio humidity. It was somebody just identified this guy like, hey, you're going to be an element leader. You can be my dorm chief. You guys are in charge. This is the standard.
But see, hold
So
on, real
I
quick.
might be older. I might be older than a guy, or a guy might be older than me. And if I'm in charge, I say, yo, listen, we got to get our night displays ready or whatever with the uniforms. It's time to do that. It doesn't matter that I was 18 in basic training, or when I was head red rope, I was 18, 19 years old. If you're 26 and you join late, that's cool. My position is this: get in line, hut 2, 3, 4. We going to school.
And see, and like but to answer your question, Q, that's not the right question. The right question is, why did he have to say it? That's the
Where
correct question.
where are these other
That
veterans?
shows
Yeah.
you the state of the Chicago Bears. That showed you the point of the Chicago Bears right there. They aren't,
No, you
as
get off
as
the bus, Ray John. You get off the bus with that.
as
In
Resident
basic
would
training,
say, the
you get
Bears
off
are
the
not a serious
bus.
team. The Bears are not a serious team.
We
You know what
got
I
up
mean?
when you got off the bus. We went in there 0 week. We're in the day room, and they just started assigning positions. Maybe it's off the how you carried yourself. Maybe it's posture. Maybe it was like some TIs, like a guys who were tall. It just depends on who got put in that position. If you were good at it, people respected you. If you weren't going to be respected, and those guys got replaced. But if the expectation is we're in this together, we're showing a training camp together, let's make sure we do this collectively. I know the the message does land. The messenger may not have earned that clout yet, but allow him to use this as is like, you know what? This guy is trying to make the team better, present us better. Well, give him that opportunity.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like,
And we got ours 0 week. We got
so
there Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, they
but
had all these people assigned.
and that's the problem, Q. Maybe the coaches haven't set the culture. So now, but think about it though. Now you got Shane Waldron in there, who was the offensive coordinator in Seattle last year. So he came up under Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll ain't running no ship like that. So maybe that's something that can bleed into Chicago. Maybe that's a conversation that this offensive coordinator had with his quarterback. Like, hey, you're the quarterback, you're the leader of this team, XYZ, all that kind of stuff like that. But back to Minnesota real quick, you know what I mean? Like, the one thing that I do know about Minnesota, for better or worse, is that they're going to play some close games. You remember what they did 2 years ago, when they were the playoff team with the losing, they won 13 games and had
the
a
point
losing
differential.
point differential. Last year, they went 6-7 in one score games. That's 13 of their 17 games, one score. So I know that Minnesota's going to end. And Brian Flores did a masterful job with that defense last year. They weren't a top defense in the league, but they were a hell of a lot better than you thought they had any right being.
Correct.
So looking at their schedule, so we can get on to the team that matters in this division. You know what I mean? They start at the Giants. So hey, JJ McCarthy, if you're the starter, right? Daniel Jones don't lose to JJ McCarthy. And then they host San Francisco the week after that. And then this is what they do to Minnesota, right? They get the Giants, and you're like, hey, maybe Minnesota could sneak that game depending on what Daniel Jones looks like, is so on and so forth. But then you go San Francisco at home, Houston at home, at Green Bay, Jets. Then you get your bye. Then you go Lions at home, at the Rams. So even if you get that Giants win, you might be looking at 1-6 down the barrel.
Yeah, but if you look at their schedule, the only teams, there's two teams on here, maybe even just the one. I'll say two. Tennessee and Tennessee, Arizona, Atlanta. Those are the only three games where if Minnesota was favored 55% to 45 to win, it wouldn't surprise you. The rest of these games, I think they're probably not going to be favored to win. They're probably not going to be favored against the Giants. They're probably not going to be favored against 49ers, Houston, Green Bay, the Jets, Lions, Rams, Colts, Jacksonville. So their first 9 games, they're going to be underdogs.
Right. I'm giving them.
Yeah, but that's the
I'm giving
thing.
them
Like,
5 wins. I'm giving them 5 wins.
but it's not like it's a juggernaut. It's not like they have like a Steelers, Bengals, Chiefs, Bills kind of run. I think they're just going to be underdogs because just by proxy of their roster, I think
And
it's
we
going to
got
be
to figure out who
underdogs.
their quarterback is.
Yeah,
But I say all of that to say that I'm picking the Lions to win this division. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know what I'm saying, and you'll appreciate this, Residente. You know, sixth in rushing last year, third in passing. You know, Jahmyr Gibbs, 5.2 yards per carry, second in the league in 20-yard rushes and wasn't even the starter. He's what Reggie Bush was supposed to be.
Yo, shout out to Reggie Bush.
No shout out to Reggie Bush. No
Shout out to Reggie Bush. Shout out to Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush is a loser.
619. Him and Alex Smith out there winning state championships in Cali.
Nah, I do fuck with Reggie Bush though, but I'm just saying, Jahmyr Gibbs is what he is. What they told us Reggie Bush was going to be. Let me introduce you to Jahmyr Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs is the perfect running back for today's NFL, especially a team like Detroit. I know Jared Goff gets a lot of heat. We could talk about the NFC Championship game. I'm still going to put the shoulder that blame on Dan Campbell for not just kicking a field goal and going back up 17 in the third quarter. Just go back up 3 possessions. At a minimum, you would take the wind out of the sails of the stadium.
Right.
Even if you didn't get the points you wanted, the drive didn't end, you wanted. They got a field goal and you want to get a touchdown. I understand what you want intrinsically, but you would have taken the wind out of the sails. Because say you get that 17. And then San Francisco comes out and either they have a long drive, they're eating up the clock. I think it would have been like 8 minutes left if they would have gone back up 17. It would have been somewhere between like 7 to 8 minutes. So they're going to eat up at least 3 or 4 minutes if you play solid defense. If you didn't give up any big plays and they're just moving the ball down the field to get points, they're going to eat up 4 to 5 minutes out of that 8-minute clock anyway. So now you're getting the ball back. Worst case scenario, you're still up 2 possessions. Running the ball 3 minutes, getting to the fourth. Now, I mean, I just wish they would have played the long game and we would have gotten our Chiefs, Lions rematch in the Super Bowl. I think that would have been dope. But he didn't, and then he kept going for it on fourth down. Maybe he'll learn. I like how they feel off him because I haven't heard anything negative about him all offseason.
You remember that Dallas game last year?
The reporting eligible, literally everybody, the entire offensive line damn near reported. Like everybody was wiping their chest. And I don't know how the ref missed. I think he got
then he just kept going for 2 after that, though.
Well, of course. I mean, like I look at it the same way. It's like, we're already good. Like, why and we talked about this. I don't know if it was on the show. We just had that conversation on the phone. I was like, I'd rather just go for 2 and win it and be done or lose it and be out of here. Either way, I'm winning my division. I think they were already kind of locked into where they were seeding wise. It was like, why play 10 more minutes of a game that doesn't really matter ultimately to the scheme of what they were trying to do? Like, I'd rather just go ahead and go up and win by 1 and wrap it up. But like I said, they got jammed up because everybody reported. They ran it straight to the referee and he got it.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, they had a shot in the NFC Championship game. You talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. You talked about Jameson Williams. Like, just I know when guys get injured in that last college football game before they're draft eligible, it's always like, damn, my NFL hopes might have just gone by the wayside. But what ends up happening is that instead of going 7, you go 27. And the team at 27 had a way better record in core than the team at 7. So now Jameson Williams came off the injury, then he came off the suspension. Right now, it's like you got a fresh, brand new first-round wide receiver talent that has 2 years in your system already. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, no distraction. You paid him, got it squared away. Jared Goff got his extension. I think he's still on a redemption towards a lot of guys. Sometimes I think these athletes need like to have a chip on their shoulder. I think Jared Goff is going to constantly have a chip on his shoulder because the way they ran him out of LA. I mean, maybe he really did try to knock down Sean McVay's fiance. I don't know what the truth is, but everyone made it seem like it was his fault that they didn't go far in the playoffs. Like I was the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl. McCourty doesn't make that play, we probably win. know what I'm saying? So I like Jared Goff. I like what he's doing. I like how he fits. Like I said, I like his redemption story. And I just like the weapons that they have in Detroit.
Pause. You know what I'm saying? I like how he fits. Okay. You know.
I was like, I
So
thought you said about weapons. I'm like, the
nah, so Josh Reynolds is gone, so that
is he really there though?
but well, it depends on how you want to look at this. If you're looking at it from a statistical framework, no. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of that was your possession receiver. That was your big body, pause, I guess, that would go across the middle and make those plays because Amon-Ra St. Brown gets nicked up a lot too. You know what I mean? Jamison Williams came into the league off of that ACL, so it's been a little slow for him. You know what I mean? He got suspended for gambling.
He had hand, foot, and mouth disease last year.
Yeah,
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He got he gets nicked up, bro. He just does it. But Detroit said, you know what? I heard what y'all said about Jordan Love. You know what? I heard about what you said about Caleb Williams. So we're gonna go out and not only draft Terrion Arnold, who might be the best corner in the draft, but we're gonna get Ennis Rakestraw too. And then it's the logical. Do you know who the Detroit Lions drafted in the 4th round?
Probably somebody that Atlanta could have used, but who they get?
Sione Vaki.
Out of Utah.
Yes, our guy. Friend of the show.
He play. I think he was playing running back one game, had like 100 and something yards rushing.
Yeah, not a loser. You know what I mean? And then they did
pick winning coach here in Rice Eccles Stadium. Let's go.
They picked up Donovan Peoples-Jones, from Cleveland. So maybe he can fill that void, even though he's not necessarily that Keyshawn Johnson type, receiver. Maybe he can fill in some of that Josh Reynolds that I was talking about earlier. Yeah. So last year, Jamison Williams in the 3 playoff games, he only had 79 receiving yards. That's gotta come up this year. This has to be the breakout year. Every year there's a player on every team that you're looking at and saying, we need you to come with us. And if you do, success awaits. If they can get Jamison Williams to fulfill his potential, the Lions might just be playing in the Super Bowl this year.
Just get the ball in his hands. We saw what happened when he got the ball in his hand the first quarter against San Francisco. It was like a 50-yard touchdown. And he was clear 20 yards through the line. It was like, that's a touchdown. Like, as soon as he got through and he got on the second level, it was like, this guy is dynamic. It looked like a couple of those games that he had against Georgia where he just got that ball and it's like there was no one else on the field.
Right. And you would be shocked. Detroit was one of the top defenses in the league. Who thought that? On top of the rushing statistics the rushing statistics that we talked about. So this is Aaron Glenn. Is this his last year? Is he going to get a head coaching job soon? And then you got Aiden Hutchinson. So this is my problem with Detroit. I talked about Green Bay, how they made the minimal moves. They went and got Xavier McKinney, but nothing else. So Detroit still needs somebody to help Aiden Hutchinson because Aiden Hutchinson is a one-man wrecking crew right now. But eventually when you play against the better teams, they can scheme you out in some ways. We see that with people like Michael Parsons.
Ask Joey Bosa.
Ask Joey Bosa. Ask Nick Bosa.
Nick Bosa, yeah.
Both of the Bosas. But then again, Joey Bosa's a loser because he's on that Keenan Allen plan of I don't want to play. Like Stephen A was talking about how Kawhi invent injuries. Saying he went to the school of Bosa. Saying? So as we sit here, they lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. CJ Gardner-Johnson. He went back to Philly, but he missed half of last year, or actually he missed every game except for the last game of the season going into the playoffs. So they didn't even get that benefit. I thought that he would have been a great fit to keep there, but I guess it just wasn't to be. So when I look at Detroit, I don't think Green Bay can match them toe to toe as far as point production in a one-off, in a one-game scenario. They could match Detroit point for point. But Detroit would get the first stop. If they play, when you're looking at Chicago, they did get Marcus Davenport. Good call, Q. You know what I'm saying? But they still need more. But they also, if you match them up with Chicago, we still don't know what Caleb Williams is, and I think Aaron Glenn is good enough to confuse him. When I look at Minnesota, Minnesota has the prerequisite talent. They just don't have the quarterback right now to our knowledge. JJ McCarthy might come out and surprise us. But as we sit here on August 5th, year of our Lord 2024, saying we don't know who Minnesota's quarterback is. So that's why for me, it's easy to pick Detroit to win this division because they're the best all-around team. Carlton Davis was a great pickup. Another secondary piece, so and that's my point is that like Green Bay has Jair Alexander, maybe Eric Stokes lives up to his potential, but Detroit got dudes to where it's like, hey, you know what? If this guy plays bad, let me give the Rook a shot, and so
they
on.
They can
so
cut
forth.
off half the field with what they do in Detroit, which will help Aiden Hutchinson because now wide receivers aren't open as quick.
Right.
So now these quarterbacks have to hold the ball half a second to get to that next read. If that's enough for Aiden Hutchinson to get in and get your strip sacks, or if that's enough for your defensive tackle to get the pressure up front. And sometimes it's a matter of.
And I like the DJ Reader pickup too, by the way, Q.
You get lucky, you grind, and you're going to be on top of your division for a while. Minnesota's going to take a little bit. Green Bay did sign Jordan Love, but I think they're going to take a couple. It's going to take Green Bay, I believe, a couple of years where we're locking them in for 11 or 12 wins. Like the way we're pretty much locking the Rams in right now for 10 wins, even though last year we didn't think that was the case.
It's one of those things, right?
12 wins,
It's going to be whenever Detroit, because Detroit's going to have a decision to make here, right? Like they're going to have a decision to make, depending on how this season finishes up. You know what I mean? You got to look at Jared Goff's contract and you got to figure out what's the road forward.
I think he'll play. I think because I believe he found a home in Detroit, even though he's a California kid. I think he'll give them that, I won't say Mahomes kind of deal, but I can't imagine.
He got the extension already. I'm just saying.
He got
like,
an extension.
Like, they got him. They gave him the 4-year, $212.
The way Tyreek Hill just moved his deal around with the Dolphins to get more money, but they spread it out. I think because Aiden Hutchinson is going to get paid. I don't think they're going to treat his contract the way Dallas is treating Micah Parsons. So I think Aiden Hutchinson is going to get paid. You might want to pay him before Micah gets paid if that's an opportunity. Like if Micah plays out this whole year and doesn't get paid, because if he has a good year, then it's going to be, like you said, incumbent on Detroit to either match or exceed whatever Micah Parsons gets. So that's all. The contracts, they're going to work themselves out. If you have a good capologist in your building, you'll figure out how to move money and hide it offshore and bring it back. Hide it in crypto, hide it in vending machine or stock options, whatever the hell you got to do to keep your team locked in. I think they'll figure that piece out. Yeah, but like you say, you see how quickly they got Amon-Ra done. Jared Goff wasn't a drag on. Like we've been talking about Dak's contract since 2000.
Detroit looks like an actual NFL franchise now.
Listen, it's amazing when you get the right culture guy in there that says stuff like, let's keep the locker room clean.
That's
I'm saying, like,
when you get a dude in there willing to bite some kneecaps, it just all comes together
on the way down and the way back up.
It just comes together, So looking at Detroit's schedule, right? Looking at Detroit's schedule, they start off with playoff rematches. They get the Rams at home again. Remember, they sent the Rams home. They get Tampa week 2 at home. They sent Tampa home. Remember that? Then they go their first road game to Arizona, Monday Night Football home for Seattle, bye week, and then off that bye week, they go back to Jerry World. Let's see if Dan Campbell's going to play with fate again. At Minnesota, Tennessee at home, at Green Bay, at Houston, Jacksonville at home, at Indianapolis, Chicago, Green Bay, Buffalo all at home. At Chicago, close with San Francisco for Monday Night Football. That game could be for the number 1 seed. So when I'm looking at this schedule, right, I had to talk to myself.
Because a good flow to that schedule.
Yeah, because remember earlier I said when I first looked at Minnesota's schedule, I was like 3-14. And then I had to be like, okay. They'll get 6 or so. When I first looked at Detroit's schedule, I was like 13-4. That's 13-4. Let's get it.
I mean, it's favorable if you look at, because like with all the different days of the week that games are going to be played this season, and with Amazon getting stuff and Peacock getting nights and Netflix is getting games, it's going to be all over the map. They
Right.
play a lot of their games on Sunday. I think they got a couple Monday night games, maybe one Thursday night game, but they play a lot of games in 7-day increments on Sundays. They got
Mm-hmm.
a Monday night game, they got a Thursday night game against the Packers, and they got a Monday night game week
And then, of
17.
course, they got the Thanksgiving. I don't know if you said that, but yeah.
The Thanksgiving game.
Yeah.
So they have a
So,
couple of Thursday games, and that's a Thursday game, and you still got 10 days for your next game. So I think they're going to be in a good schedule, good routine.
yeah. I
You
like
know,
12-5 too, Residente. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say Detroit 12-5. I'm gonna go Green Bay 9-8. I'm gonna go Chicago 7-10, and I'm gonna go Minnesota, call it 5-12.
I like those numbers. Chicago could pop at 8-9, but
Yeah, they could
I
pop at 8 and
like.
9.
I don't know. I just haven't seen Caleb Williams hit his back foot and let the ball go often enough to where I think it could be a situation where he throws a bad pick out of the pocket that he could have just stayed in the pocket and hit Komet across the middle. A game like that, and they just end up losing it just because you're a rookie. I know we see these guys in their high school 7-on-7. We see them in the Elite 11, and we see them on TV, and we see them getting rated, and we see their Instagram. Then they go to college, and we see them for 4 years and think that this guy's a 23, 24-year-old seasoned vet, not realizing that most of these guys that got drafted this year are younger than my oldest son. So it's like they take time. Like I had to sit down with my Sunday. We had to like go over life lessons and things of that nature. So if you're playing a CEO essentially of a major corporation, which you are as a starting quarterback, there's going to be some pitfalls. There's going to be some lumps. I just hope that they're given an opportunity to really play it out. JJ McCarthy, Sam Darnold already had his shot. Minnesota give him his shot. Chicago, give Caleb Williams a shot. Clean up the locker room. Don't just patronize because he paints his fingernails and let people just kind of sway his narrative, because you need this guy locked in. It's a very tough position. We talked about that GoPro footage that Tua had on his helmet, and it was like, I don't know how the hell these guys even get these throws off. And I've been watching quarterback, and I've seen, you got a guy, the blitz is hot, and Joe Burrow caught a snap. I was watching something earlier, got the snap, barely turned, threw the pass to the tight end, and took a whole defensive tackle on his chest, knocked him down. I was like, he barely had a chance to turn his head to let the ball go. So it's a tough position to play. I would hope that people within the organization are trying to cultivate a culture to where you allow this guy to be the leader and you support him and get everybody to follow around him. I know wins fixes that, so you got to have some wins. You can't start out 1-4 after 5 games and talk about, listen, we're building a culture, because you could have just done that with Justin Fields and another guy drafted at number 1. So,
we got one division left before we turn it over to college football, the real football. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? But yeah, that was the NFC North. I think it's one of the most. It's probably the division I'm looking the most forward to, just because of all this hype and just seeing how it plays out.
I think that division, without doing the math, I think a lot of those games will be flexed into national television games. I think Jordan Love, I think Caleb Williams is so polarizing that I believe a lot of his games, if given the opportunity, if they can make them nationally televised games, I think they're going to go, especially early on in the year.
Yeah, I wish Caleb Williams was in the AFC and he could play CJ Stroud. You could do that good versus evil thing that we like to do.
Well, I think they have. I thought we had that matchup.
No, they
right?
do play. They do play this year, but they're not going to
Okay.
play very often, because it's just
They'll make it like for some reason Indy played New England all the time. Every year it seemed like they were playing every regular season.
Well, they
And
had to look that. Yeah, they set that up on
they
purpose.
did something to set it up that way.
It always seemed like they played at the same place a lot too.
They always played like Dallas and Green Bay always seemed to have a reason to play. It was always something to where
Dallas and San Francisco
always played each other every year.
because America loves to watch the Cowboys get their ass whooped.
But like,
you know what I'm saying?
Miami versus the Rams just never seems to happen.
Hey, they play this year.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like certain teams seem that they have like this matchup every year.
For sure. But Joe, thank you for all the support. Thanks for the engagement. Like, review, subscribe, share it, rate us, review us. I ain't gonna say the rest because I don't want to be a copycat. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm getting at. You know what I'm saying? We will see you in a few days to talk about the AFC North.
Ooh. And we get 3 playoff teams out there.
That's division in football. I said it.
We'll figure out Thursday.
We love you. See you soon. Peace. Hey, Mike, I got to. When our teams can't beat the Cowboys, we got to revel when y'all get y'all ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? It's just real because we losers, man. You know what I'm saying? Peace.